I'm Joey, and this is Tremaine. Today we'll be sharing with you our podcast. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to our podcast. Joey and I today will be sharing with you our podcast. Joey will be sharing his speech and I will be telling you my thoughts on racism. We will be having an interview with someone who has experienced racial discrimination and we will also be sharing some tips and tricks on how you can get rid of racism and keep it gone. Now sit back and relax. Thank you.
Racism has been going around for hundreds and hundreds of years, so why is it still here? How does it keep going? Well, I'm Joey, and this is Tremaine. Today we'll be telling you the answers to those questions, so stick around.
So why is it still here? Well, that is a very good question. So before we start off, let's talk about what is racism. Racism is the belief that one race is better than the other. This includes behavior. So it's basically saying that one race is more trustworthy or expectational to another. This is incredibly wrong. Have you ever seen a person who was, say, a different skin color to yourself? Have you ever kind of assumed what they would act like? That is one example of a racist stereotype. A stereotype is a fixed thought, like, I don't want to sit beside him, he's black. I'm sure this has been the thought for some people. You may not say it, but thinking it is just as bad.
Do you know how much racism occurs for some people every day? For some people, it occurs every day. Imagine that. Most of the people have just accepted it in their everyday life because they think that they can't do anything about it. It's a horrible fact, but that's why people are trying so hard to make racism a thing of the past. But nothing is working. We need to work together and not try to solve this individually. That's what's dragging us down. We need to do it together. If we get enough people willing to contribute, the changes will be noticed.
So now you've got a good understanding of what racism is, and you've heard about stereotypes. Let's get into those questions I mentioned earlier.
Why is racism still here? Well, this is one of those questions that a lot of people are wondering. But there are many reasons on why people have racist impact on others. Racism is such a big thing in this world today because a lot of people in our present world are very quick to judge others. This goes back to the racist stereotypes I was talking about earlier. When I was reading some articles, I found that some people can also be racist when they are frustrated and want someone else to blame but themselves.
How does racism keep growing? Have you ever heard anyone make racist jokes? This is one of the main reasons racism is becoming more of a problem, because people find those jokes funny, which means they will make those jokes. It just carries on, making racism grow rapidly, making racism more of a problem for those who are discriminated against on a day-to-day basis.
I will now share with you my speech. Would you want to be discriminated? Because I'll tell you one thing, I wouldn't. Discrimination is a huge problem in this world right now, and that is why I'm trying to stop it. Discrimination is when you say nasty things or laugh behind someone's back simply just because they're different to you. Now, you may be wondering what is racism, and that is why I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. Racism is terrible. You should not be judged for something that you're born with and something that you can't change. It's just not right. Racism is something that should be stopped, and I think everyone listening to this speech agrees with me. If you see someone getting bullied because of their skin color, you should be an upstander and help out because it's the right thing to do. An upstander and a bystander. Before I start off this paragraph, I'm going to tell you one more time. Be an upstander, not a bystander. Don't know what an upstander is? It is someone who stands up for what is right and tells the person to stop discriminating against people, and hopefully they will listen. Now, a bystander is something that you don't want to be, and I will tell you why. What would happen if you're an upstander or a bystander? If you were an upstander and you saw someone getting bullied, if you were to be an upstander, you would help out the kid and go to a teacher to sort out the situation. If you did nothing, that would be what a bystander is, and you'll still get in trouble even though you didn't do anything to harm the kid. You still didn't do anything to stop your friend from discriminating. No one should be discriminated because no one deserves to feel ashamed of their color. Because as I said before, it hurts people. And do you want to know Do you want to be known as the class bully? We were all born differently, and it doesn't matter if you're born with a disability or a different race or anything else that makes you different. It doesn't matter. The reason why racism is not okay is because it really hurts people's feelings, and they are hurt for something that they can't change, something that they are born with. Another reason why racism is not okay because we all bleed the same color in the inside. Doesn't matter on the outside, you can still touch each other without getting a disease. You can be friends with any color, just remember that, and don't let the bullying get to you.
Would you mind sharing a story on how someone you know or someone you love has been discriminated against?
I am a New Zealand born person of Pākehā descent. My daughter is Pākehā like me, but also her dad is from Zimbabwe. So I find sometimes we are discriminated against as a peer because people automatically assume that as a white person I can't be her mother.
How did it make you feel? Please be specific.
I feel quite sad that people automatically assume that skin colour is the only thing that matters in terms of relationships that we have with each other or how we may be connected. I think that as an adult, it's easier for me to explain why me and my daughter might be different, but I do worry about her growing up and having lots of questions from people as to why her mum is a different colour to her. I feel like that could be quite frustrating or make her feel quite different, that people would assume that her mother isn't her mother because we have different skin colours.
Is it just a one-time thing, or do you get discriminated against a lot?
This happens a lot. Everywhere we go, people assume that she's not my daughter, or they make comments asking her where her mum is when I might be standing quite close. Or now that she's old enough to start going to preschool, even the preschool kids ask her why we look different. Sometimes it is just genuine questions, and we don't mind those questions. But I guess the hardest thing is when adults ask those same questions and they ask them in a way where they're perhaps not being very thoughtful about how she might feel. So I think that it's really important that we understand the difference between a genuine question and something that is insensitive or you have not thought before you've spoken.
What are your thoughts on racism?
I really struggle to understand racism. I don't understand why people think that skin colour has anything to do with your character. I know that inside we're all the same, and that externally our skin doesn't affect who we are other than maybe some cultural traditions that we follow. But of course, you could be of any skin colour and follow a certain culture. I think that racism is born out of ignorance, and I think that racism is born out of a fear of difference. So if we were better at understanding that difference is celebrated and not treated as suspicious, I think we would get better at understanding that race is just simply the package that we come in, and that our character is actually more important.
How do you think we could eliminate racism?
I think that if we started celebrating all difference, whether that be gender, race, preferences, maybe someone has a disability, if we celebrated difference, we would understand that it's something that we don't have to be frightened or suspicious of, and therefore we wouldn't automatically assume that different races have certain characteristics. We would understand that it's just skin deep, and that the way someone behaves is actually a lot more important than the package that they come to the table, than the package that they bring to the table.
Is there any advice you could give to somebody who has been discriminated against?
I guess the only advice I have is that you would know that it is the person who is discriminating against you that actually needs the education, or to go away and think about where that discrimination has come from. Doesn't make you any less of a person. It actually speaks volumes about the other person's character and perhaps the fact they haven't educated themselves. I would advise people to feel proud of who they are and how they were born, and to continue to spread the message that difference should be celebrated and not treated as a bad thing.
I would like to share with you my thoughts on racism. Well, I think racism is terrible, and I'm still very confused on how it survived and why it survived. I hope that it does go away, and I do think this world needs to do something about it, because it's becoming more and more of a problem, and we don't want that. It has to go away.
I've also got some tips and tricks on how you can get rid of racism. Number one, don't let it get to you. If you're getting racist jokes thrown at you, ignore them and don't let anything further happen. Number two, if someone says a racist joke about you but it isn't directed at you, don't laugh, because it means that you don't care and that you want them to feel ashamed of their color.
Thank you for. That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening.